Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla, and that is the first time I ever shifted into drive instead of reverse in my. Well, I've been driving for over 2 years now. Never done that before. I think it's just because of the recording. Since I started the recording kind of earlier than usual, I usually. No, yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what that was about. That was weird. Anyways, hey guys, what's up? It's no. Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla, bringing you another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And today, I was just thinking, it's one of those days I'm in the mood to go to the gas station. We may hit that joint up. We may hit that joint up, even though we don't need gas. No, I'm kidding. But I was thinking that in my head. It feels like a gas station morning, even though that doesn't really make any sense because we had gotten gas a while ago. So it's interesting, I was thinking about yesterday about how I do the car and manual and how it does cost me a little extra in gas, and I wonder if there's a. No, I mean, I guess I do believe there is a benefit. I don't really doubt it. But it's like, the main thing is the noise for the recording, you know? That's kind of the main thing I think about. Because the engine would definitely be quieter, especially like this, but it is what it is. I like to have it optimized for what's best for the car. So, I don't know what else I was going to talk about. It felt like a Wednesday, and it's not, it's Tuesday. So that always is no fun, but I was thinking this yesterday. I don't know if I said it, but Monday came through, like I went through Monday pretty quick. And so that was pretty good. Monday felt like it went by fast, and by the end of Monday I was like, oh well, at least Monday's through. That starts things off pretty well. I was about to say something else. Now I don't remember. Oh, yes. I remember way back, and this probably is recorded. It probably is recorded on one of the earlier car rides with Schla, with the worst microphone and all that. I think I said something like, in my dream it would be the morning episodes were Patreon only or something like that, and then only the evening car rides with Schla would be posted on the channel, because during the morning I would typically, that was usually the time I would get into a lot of the serious stuff and the deeper things, and I was always like, yeah, that's really me at my best in the morning, because I'm a morning person, and I still am a morning person. Now, though, I don't know. I feel like consistently the morning episodes have been the worst episodes. I could be wrong about that. I just don't know. I don't really know if I actually think the morning episodes have been better or not. So it's kind of a shame. I thought we were going to be a little bit early today, but we're definitely not. I'm thinking about leaving a little bit earlier, just a touch. Nothing crazy though, because I'm already pushing it, as I told you guys before. If anything, it would be more ideal for me to leave later, but because I still do encounter some traffic even when I leave. It's usually not as much, but it's still there. But the problem is, it's getting to the point where I'm leaving so late that it's not really, it's I'm pushing it. You know what I mean? I'm just pushing it too much. I don't think it's good to, well, I don't know about whether it's good or not, but I don't know. I guess you could make the argument that I really should be pushing it since I don't even have my own place yet. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a health component to it too. And it is, you get to the point where what I've done is I've thought about maximizing, which is, oh, if you bother to go to work, you might as well spend a lot of time, as much time as you can. But then at the same time, I think it gets to a point where, well, you can't stay too late, because then you're barely even spending any time at your house. And then what's the point of even as is now, I probably would sleep in my car or something. I could make that work with my current setup, because I could leave all my food for the week in the fridge, and yeah, I could just sleep at the job, which I actually would do that if they let me, but obviously they wouldn't be interested in that. I'm saying that as if you guys know, like, oh yeah, you guys know those guys. It's a shame though, because I would do that at least a day a week, because I don't get what the point is, So I would just leave my car there and just sleep in my car. It would save a ton of money, and I would probably do it Monday through Friday if I could. Save me so much money. But things are not set up like that, because most people don't even think like that anyway. And then it's just, again, humans think socially. Like they don't think logically, they think socially. And so since it's such a default that everybody has their own house and all this stuff, nobody thinks in that way, even though it's way more efficient. And what's funny is nowadays it's more feasible than ever because of phones. Like you can go in your car, be on your phone, and you basically have a decent little enclosure there. It wasn't like that in the past, so I can kind of see how before you really had a reason to go home. But yeah, the amount of cost it would save me, it'd probably save me over $100 a month doing that. Because again, the car would just have so much less wear. If I just came on Monday and then left on Friday, wow. Probably wouldn't be great for mental health though, but like I said, I still think I would do it. I do. I genuinely, I just think I would have done that this whole time if I could have. But like I said, it's just that's the issue with humans, is they're so obsessed with thinking along the median that they're not thinking about what's better to do. And a lot of people just judge things. See, I feel like they say that a lot. They say people are too emotional. I don't think that being emotional is a problem. I think it's being emotional poorly. And I know that you could make the argument that emotion's subjective, that's the whole point. No, I think there's still an objective ranking for emotion. Some people have better emotions than others. I think you can quantify that. I don't really think it's very objective. Perhaps you could say everybody's own emotions are inherently valid to themselves, and there's that whole thing, because you can't really just tell someone they're wrong or act like that. It doesn't work. But in terms of the truth, it is true that some people's emotional input is just not, it's not good. I mean, it's not really valid all the time. There's probably things that I believe that are also like that, although, again, I'd like to think that I'm a little bit more critical of things and whatnot, but I guess I just, not really sure, you know? But I try to think like that, and to not have as many blind spots and things. You know, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Happens when you're driving. Like I said, show's gonna get a lot better someday. We're just being slung through the mud right now. So I don't even remember what we were talking about. Thinking, the median, emotional, subjective, yeah, emotion. So I do think, though, there's clearly some opinions that are better or worse than others. Certain people's opinions on how to do things will yield them a better life than others. There's some people who may have some fear of debt and using credit cards, for example, and then so they just never use them, but they save their money, they're still practical, but then they're worse off. You see what I mean? Because then you could use that to be smart, to get the good cards and to use them properly, like I am. I shouldn't even be saying this, because I'm going to start getting declined. I'm going to start getting declined credit if because they don't like me. They don't like me because I take money from them, not the other way around, so they don't like me. But yeah, and that's an example of an opinion that's just wrong, and I think that's hard for people to really contend with. Now, opinions that are inconsequential. You know, I do want to take note, this conversation we're having right now, it's something I know very evidently and very predominantly. It's something I've always kind of thought about anyway. But I'm realizing I don't really think anybody thinks this far, because I've never heard it come up in conversation from anybody else. And I don't think I really realized that up until this point. I think that happens a lot of the times. I'll be talking to someone about something, and then I'm realizing it probably never even dawned on them before, whatever topic I'm talking about. And I just think that's crazy to think about. Personally, I don't know. I just think it is. That somebody could have never thought about the things that I don't understand how you could go through life and not think of these things. Now, what I was going to say is that, if I can even remember now, because I had to point that out, but I'm only interjecting with it because I guess I feel kind of shook about it. Because there's so many people I've talked to and I casually say these things to, and then I'm not realizing that's probably the first time they've ever even been exposed to what I'm talking about, because I don't ever hear anybody else talking about a lot of the stuff I bring up. I don't know if I'm just around dumb people, or if... Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the problem is, but it's always shocking to me, because I just assume that people would know or would hear about it. It's very strange. It's extremely strange. But alas, back to what I was saying. there are some opinions you should not have, and you should engineer out of yourself. And I don't know, I guess you can get into the debate about how healthy or feasible that is, and that some people just have flaws that they can't get rid of. And I don't know, could that cause personality fracturing or things like that, which has probably happened to me. But I just can't help it because I want to try to optimize myself. And I was coming from such a laid back and what I would gauge as lazy upbringing to where now I really have to kick myself into gear. If I had been raised stricter from the start, then I wouldn't have to have that dramatic change. But what can you do? I think most people, there's only a certain amount you can move out of whatever you are. So however you were raised, you can try to self-improve, but you can probably only move so much up and down from how you were raised. And there's obviously extreme examples of that. There's some people who are probably raised really well, who do end up falling from grace pretty hard. And then there's also rare examples of people who are raised really poorly and somehow kick it in gear. But for the most part, people adhere to what they started with, and there's not too much variation past that. That would be my impression of it. But back to what I was saying originally, is that there are a lot of opinions that are inconsequential, and I always use favorite color as the example. I can't really judge someone for having the favorite color orange or the favorite color yellow or the favorite color blue. I can't do that because it doesn't really affect things too much. I mean, technically though, and this is another thing I think people mistakenly believe, everything actually has a downstream effect. It does. I don't think there's a single opinion or perspective that you could hold that does not affect something at least indirectly. That is just the truth. There is no way around it. Now, some are genuinely inconsequential, so I guess you could argue there's no point in really mentioning it. But in some cases, it could be consequential, you know? So you have to think about that stuff. I'm obviously trying to think of an example right now. If your favorite color is red and you get a red cars have the highest probability of getting hit because the red paint blends in better with the brake lights. Whereas if I had to guess, it would be white or even yellow. Yellow or orange cars are probably the safest because they're obviously just the brightest. So if I had to guess, yellow is probably the safest car. And it would probably be like that neon lime green yellow, which kind of ugly. You barely see cars like that, but nonetheless a very safe color. I doubt that person will end up getting hit because it's so bright. So that's what I'm saying. If you liked that color, that Gatorade yellow, neon yellow, and you just liked the color so much you wanted to get your car that color, there's an example of at first, oh, it's just a favorite color, it doesn't matter, but now it's affecting something consequentially. And technically anybody who has a favorite color that's a deviation away from that is inevitably going to end up picking a worse color for their car. Now, some people, I think, pick a car color independent of their favorite color. So that's probably a fairly large subset, I would assume. So I think a lot of people just want a car to blend in and they just pick a neutral color. And so in that case, maybe their favorite color doesn't affect their car. And that's probably the most consequential thing I can think of. Color also affects resale value on car. So even though it's safer, you probably wouldn't be able to resell your lime green, lime yellow car very easily, because it's not a very appetizing color. I know that was not the word I wanted, but that's what came out. That's all I could think of. It's not a very appetizing color for most people. The only other thing I can think about is it, but see, I don't think people even have strong opinions when it comes to favorite color or things like that. I don't think people do. That's the thing. I think a lot of people, they have a favorite color, but I don't think many people are even that caring about it, or they still kind of get stuff with. Like for me, colors and looking at things it's so important. I care about it so much, even if I don't, because I feel like right now I don't have as clear of a favorite color as I did before, but every color I take notice of, I think about. And I don't see people doing that. I can't remember if I've talked about this before or not on the show. I may have in one of the really early episodes, but I also may have just been a thought to myself before even doing car rides with Schla. I've said though, I notice cars, I notice car designs. I'm always looking at cars and analyzing them when I'm driving. And I'm obviously including color in that too. So it's interesting because I don't meet anybody else that does the same thing. Now maybe some people do and they just don't say anything. That's a possibility. Because if you are just silently analyzing a car, people might see it and just think in their head that's a nice car, but they don't verbalize it. I think I've touched on that before pretty recently too, how most people's minds are probably more capable. Yeah, no. I don't want to, well, the only reason why I said probably, because I want to explain that. Sorry, let me finish my, because you guys don't even know what I'm saying, because my brain's working faster than my mouth. Some people don't have the internal dialogue. Some people don't think and have many thoughts. And they probably talk just most of what they think. They just say it. If they think of something, that ends up just being something that would have came out of their mouth anyway. Now, obviously, I think there's also a minority of people who, well, I guess everybody does this sometimes. You might think of something but not say it. But again, the inner dialogue thing, maybe some people only do it out of anxiety and don't have the inner dialogue and other people do. Not really sure. I guess it's something to look into more. But I'm trying to remember what was I getting at with that. So some people... I lost it. Some people think everybody's brain, so even though some people probably speak more than what they think, I'm still a believer that everybody's brain is fundamentally more performant than they're able to express with their mouth. So I think this is why we see a lot of the behaviors we see with the kiosks at McDonald's. I know we've talked about that. And how people seem to gravitate to them. And it does work more efficiently than having to order via communication. In general, people just don't seem that good at communicating. I would say as a general I see it all the time. And it's because of that, because the mouth is the doorway. And it's, for most people, it's just not good at getting what's in their brain out clearly and properly. And technology has made this worse, but it's also given a medium for people to just, I think, unhealthily give into that. Because it's more difficult, I think, for the brain to interact with things verbally than to interact with them literally. So in the sense of technology. And then even when we talk about Neuralink and how that could be implanted in your brain, and then you could interact with all your tech with your thoughts. The problem with that is it is inevitable and more... Yeah, it's inevitable, but there's, I'm sure, certain things that go on when we text, when we type with a keyboard, certain brain-to-hand connections. And the same can be said about handwriting and how handwriting is important. And it's kind of a shame I kind of miss handwriting because I always liked printing. I never liked cursive, but I really like printing. I have very good handwriting for a guy. And I loved handwriting. But you just don't do it anymore. But what I'm saying is, I think it's not going to really be a good situation when you have Neuralink and people don't have to type anymore, and they don't have to verbally communicate anymore. Because it's obviously going to be a superior form of communication if you have a computer or an AI just taking your feelings and then the AI putting them into words perfectly. You see what I mean? Something that I have sort of an exclusive skill for, which I think is putting my thoughts, my opinions, my words into thoughts, opinions, words. No, my thoughts and feelings into words. Something I think I'm much better than most people at. That advantage will be diminished, I think. Or it actually might not be, because I might be better at interacting with the medium than other people, but I think you get my point. Eventually that's what would happen, is the Neuralink and then the AI would interpret whatever feelings you're feeling and be able to properly articulate them perfectly. And it'll be instantaneous and probably better than I can myself. But what I'm saying is, we don't know what negative effects that could have on the brain, to be that reliant on something just for emotional understanding. And then would we not even bother speaking or learning to read and write at that point? It's kind of a dark path I think we're down, but I guess I don't really see why, if we were in a society like that, why people would need... I think society would eventually just say, hey, what's the point in funding schools and teaching people to learn and read and write when we just have these tech things that communicate for us, read, write, and speak. But I think it's kind of dangerous, and I think we're already seeing a lot of negatives as a result of scrolling as opposed to interacting with things in a real way. I think we've talked about that before. Obviously, when I was younger in that generation, I mean, you watched videos, but They were longer form in nature, and you played games and they were difficult, and people did play them. But now less people do that stuff and more people just scroll. They just scroll. And I don't think that really is doing anything for the brain. You know, I've seen videos about it before. I don't really remember the specifics, but it's more of a curious thing. I'm not going to be able to say much about it, but I'm sure AI would. There's got to just be a huge mental not good thing going on. Huge mental detriment to scrolling. There's no way that has any benefit for humans. So it's that dramatic of a cultural shift that occurred just in a very short period of time. And now we're having people who I'm certain are not going to develop properly, especially if they're using TikTok since a child. There's no way. I mean, we've talked about, or it was kind of thought, oh, well, if somebody plays too many video games, it kind of stunts their development. And that's a fair point. I think I was a result of that, like too much tech use and it kind of stunning things. I think I was affected by that. I think most people would agree if we just didn't have access to technology, then we'd probably be better off, probably be more successful, all that good stuff. But it's a whole nother level now. It's just a whole new ball game now. Because TikTok is so much worse than anything that, you know, like they used to say, oh, video games, it'll rot your brain. You know, you have to do something productive over the summer when you go out, during summer break. Like, you can't just do nothing. Yay, I just realized my windshield wiper got left on auto again. So I'm obviously remembering to shut that off, but anyways, yeah, they used to say that, and I guess I kind of believed it, but at the same time, I'm not even sure how much I really cared. But now it's a whole other level. You know, me playing on a DS is not even remotely as bad for the brain as TikTok is now for children now. It's totally not. So that's why in one sense, I think when I was raised, it was good, because it was like it was probably as young as I could possibly be, but still avoiding a lot of that stuff. Because a lot of the kids now and younger people now, I think even people just a year or two younger than me, it's just so much worse. I think I guess I could have been born a year younger, and that probably would have been potentially more optimal. I'm not really sure. But I think I'd prefer, honestly, a year older. But there is something very specific about my generation that I think is important to note. And that's it. I mean, if I was born older, I'd be a little older, maybe a little too old to be as cutting edge. But then if I was born younger, I think I would have been lost in the sauce. So then there's that as well. I don't, you know what I mean? So as much as I guess I'm grateful for being born where I was. I'm just still upset that I didn't get to be an adult through the 2000s. That still gnaws at me. I guess. It's just upsetting. You know? And I guess it's better that I was around then, but I wish I had more footage from then. I wish I had done this. I wish I'd always just been recording, content or whatever. I wish I had more of a memory of it. That's kind of the bottom line that I'm getting at. And I don't. And it's frustrating. So I just pulled in really poorly. And so I'm not making a lot of sense. I pulled in the space kind of too much, but I think it's fine. I believe it's fine. Yeah, whatever. I guess I just pulled in more than I usually do. Ooh, we still got in too. That's good. So I guess in a way, you have to be happy. I'm grateful for the time period I was born in. It wasn't, well, in some ways it has been a difficult time to be born, I would say. Because again, I've definitely talked about this before. We were born before. We were still born in a time where we were told stuff like, oh, you can just go to college and get a good job and everything will work out. And then we grew up, and then now all of a sudden that does that. Then now our parents just are silent because they were wrong. So it is a difficult time, but I think it's the character. I think a lot of people in our specific age range, and not everybody, but we can have character. I think that's the important thing. Because I obviously wouldn't be who I am, and I probably wouldn't think a lot of the ways I do about things if it wasn't for being born when I was. And just going through the things I did. I could be a beast. I could be a superstar. I think I've said that if I had been working sooner and all that stuff. It's possible. But I'd be a totally different person. Completely different person. And so there's the character. Some of us, I think, will just have a different perspective on things. I don't know. Maybe it's probably just me kind of coping through, but I'm genuine about that. I don't know. I think it matters. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's kind of stupid because I could just be better off, and then I'm saying all this to try to cope with that. But because the way the younger gen has it easier is they were never led on. They were never lied to about things. And that's obviously an advantage, and they've also just grown up with short form content, and they know nothing different. And so we have all these painful memories of a time that no longer is, whereas the youngins now, they just always knew what they have now. So I think it's easier for them to they're like, what are you talking about? When older people reminisce. And then the people who are too much older, I don't know that they even notice because they're old and they don't really remember their childhood that much. Whereas people like us, we still think about our childhood a lot. because we're just in our 20s, and we remember how much better it was. So I think that's a pretty major thing. So I guess I'm happy when I grew up, but I wish I held on to it more. I wish I had more. Anyways, it's been Schla, but now it's time to buy Schla. So, see ya, Schla.